Tom Torero podcast 39, back on British soil after my crazy Tokyo, Kauai, Japanese adventures. And here I am in wild, wet, windy Wales. It's raining outside, it's dark, it's bleak, it's melancholic, it's wintry, but I love it. It's something in the British psyche, it's something in my introverted nature that loves it, you know, bit of downtime, cup of tea, fire on, hibernation, thinking over the day game year that has gone by, looking forward to travels to South and Central America in January. And I just found out today that I'm off to Iceland. I'm off to Reykjavik in early January. So that's another new day game adventure coming at you. But for this podcast, let's just dive in because it's going to be almost an hour long. I have just got off Skype with one of the world's most notorious day gamers and street hustlers, one of New York's finest, an original day gamer who's pioneered a lot of the stuff that you see today, especially within fields and bounce backs. So without further ado, from Miami South Beach, this was recorded only a few minutes ago. This is my interview with the one, the only Justin Wayne. On the line from sunny Miami, it's the one, the only Mr. Master Justin Wayne. All right, Justin?
Hey, it's just Justin Wayne. It's not Master. Maybe Mr.
I like Master Wayne is a lot more like Batman.
Oh, yes. You're selling Alfred right now. This is awesome. This is going to be a great podcast. We have Alfred and we have Mr. Wayne.
Exactly. It sounds so distinguished, and I'm jealous. To start by saying that you're not in New York. You're in sunny Miami.
Yeah. Basically, I decided to go to both places. I'm mostly Miami in the winter time at this point, just because, better weather. I have a few girls down here anyways, and why not? New York is pretty cold, like the 9 months of the year for me. So I'm trying
to sound happy for you, man, but I'm looking out of a window in Wales, which is this rural, dark, wet, cold place, and it's tipping down with rain.
It's called Wales after all, right? Wales love the rain and the water.
So I hate you. That's how we're going to start the podcast. I hate you and I love you. So my listeners should know from my little introduction that you're a massively respected East Coast day gamer who was a pioneer of in-field footage. I mean, I first heard of you 2010, maybe 2011, and this was like really early stuff with watch cams and pen cams, and
terrible
glasses
cameras. It was terrible cameras, man. Yeah. I'm so embarrassed to even think about it now, but those are terrible recordings.
but historical, because it was pushing the envelope, and maybe guys that have just gotten into it recently in the last year or two, they'll know of your you could say risque stuff, really pushing it with infield footage from not just dating, but taking a girl home, bedroom escalation, relationship stuff. Like, you're not afraid to show stuff with your footage, yeah?
Well, yeah, and I'll also break down how I go about doing it too, just so people can have an idea. Sometimes I did take risks, and sometimes, people have gotten back to me, and sometimes I've basically just, over time in a long relationship with a girl, it's easier to convince her to do something, and she's already with you, she's already in love with you, right?
Yeah.
So, I would be happy to break down all those small little details later on. I mean, you could ask me any question. I'll be really happy to oblige.
Very kind. It's nice to finally speak to you, man.
Definitely.
Because there's day game evolved for good reason in New York City and in London for the same reasons, yeah. And we've obviously got our yo.
Yeah, I'm here. Listen.
Sorry, man. I'll say that again. London's got its day game model, and New York's got a different flavour. And you're part of the story. You're part of the evolution of the game. And why I wanted to talk to you in particular is because you're experimental. Yeah, I know you're like me. You're almost geeky in your like scientific trial and error. So you try something, you see if it works, you adapt, try again.
I love it. It's the only real motivation I have to still be in the game after having decent success with women for such a long time. The only thing that really keeps me moving forward is innovation. But that's just the way I am. I just personally love figuring new things out. Since I was a kid, I used to be in science fairs all the time. And it's just the way I am. I can't help it. Like, I just can't help it.
I've heard you say, and it's a line I say with my students, I say, know where you are, you know, where are you in the interaction? What point are you at in the interaction? And I'm really rebelling against coaches that perhaps say, you know, just be yourself, wing it, give it a go. I mean, what the fuck does that mean? Especially for a beginner.
Of course. No, I've heard different schools of thought. I came up in a weird time, like when I was learning game, where I was around natural guys. When I said natural guys, you know, natural got some supernatural power. Just a guy who was able to, you know, have what you call enough basic confidence and approach girls the right way, you know, in the right way or in the right context. And they would get women. So those type of guys would kind of tell me basic stuff, you know, and it would be a wide range of things whether it would be like, yo, man, let me tell you something, man. All you gotta do, man, is just like, you know, offer her stuff. You know what I mean? Buy her shit. You know what I'm saying? To make her smile. Then someone else would say, dude, don't buy girls shit. Treat them like. So I'm like, but I'm seeing results from both parties, right? Like, not say results. I mean, some evidence of women in their lives, right? It doesn't have to be from a stranger approach per se. But so I just kind of realized at some point that, hey, like, this is not black or white, and this is something that's worth investigating in, and that's basically the best way to get results. So just by like, looking at what already exists, what's there. As I said before, God speaks in statistics. That's like my quote. And basically what that means is that, like, you know, a lot of the answers are there. Same how science discovered a bunch of other, you know, great advancements for humankind. It's the same way we could use that approach in game. Why does it have to be a religious thing or a belief that you only have to be direct, or you only have to be indirect, or you only have to use the domino effect? It doesn't have to be that way. It's more about just, you know, seeking for the truth and continually trying to advance this field that we are collectively contributing to. And I actually view pickup and dating as a science, because the same way how mating dancing is a science. No one complains about scientists talking about how the lions mate. Well, why can't we talk about how we mate and how we use social dominance as a form of mating dance to demonstrate our alphaness over the woman by using social dominance? You know, especially now that feminism is you know, changed the dating field. But go ahead, sorry.
I want to stand up and shout hallelujah, praise Jesus, but that in itself is ironic. I'm with you 100%, man, and I preach this daily to my followers and to those that know of my stuff, that this is a science. This has massive, you know, evolutionary roots and explanations. It's not mystical or mysterious. If you apply yourself and through trial and error, test this stuff, which I nag and you nag the guys to do. Don't just read about it, but go and test it. The truth emerges. And what's amazing is that the truth that came out of New York City and you and the other guys in New York 5 years ago, and what happened in London 5 years ago, we got the same knowledge. We got the same insights. We have different names for what we do, but the fundamental game, a street game, from approach to lay, approach to relationship, it's the same stuff. It would be alarming if we were coming up with, you know, crazily different theories, but I know your material, and the New York guys know what we do in London, and you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah. And there's like a lot of
hardwired behaviors.
Of course, a lot of overarching parts, and also, again, if we're all testing a similar social context, which is people walking on the street, you know, there's going to be a lot of commonalities, similarities, and you know, difference in style and also structure, but it doesn't mean that there's not overarching principles that are governing these results that we've accumulated over the long haul.
Well, let's because this podcast, Master Wayne, is about your style of game, your history in game, and the New York kind of feel, and maybe now the Miami feel. Can you wind back and talk about you going from, I know you started with Social Circle. What was the epiphany? What was the backstory to Cold Approach, and specifically to the street?
Okay, well, long story short, I basically was in the Caribbean. I lived a good 10 years in the Caribbean, from the age of 10 to like 20. So that's like a lot of development in the Caribbean. And I lived in a small island, and it's very social circle-y and very cliquey. And therefore, the your personal dimensions are not tested that well because it's more about who you know, your friends are, all kind of stuff. So when I came to America, all of a sudden, first of all, I'm seeing New York, I'm seeing beautiful women, right? Besides that, I was unable to really kind of like get things rolling with women there. Not to say I was a grandmaster before either. I was not anywhere near that. Wasn't that good with women in general, but I found it even harder to connect with some of these girls. And the main reason why that I didn't understand that time was I was a stranger and I haven't really evolved my personality for that particular social context, which is a stranger approaching. And, so for example, in Soul Circle, for example, if you get a phone number, even if the girl doesn't romantically like you, she still will be more receptive to talk to you as a person and treat you with a certain level of respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
She will still respond to you. Okay, hey, what's up? How's it going? Okay, sure. We're hanging out at this place. You can join us, and you join them, and then she's like, hey, well, just so you know, I kind of like as a friend, but you're still really cool. Maybe my friend Sarah might like you. Boom.
There's trust.
Exactly, and so you get it's less harsh. Whereas with strangers pickup, you can have a decent interaction, right, and nothing, right, and that's basically why I didn't understand. So that really bothered me. And so obviously I dived into the literature at that time. And at that time, I was in a generation of what you call the first generation of pickup, which is basically, that time it was based on social mechanics, aka the mystery method. And that was designed for in-club, more so, not even in-club, in lounge situations where it's kind of social, where it's almost kind of social circle, or you can play a social circle-esque game, if you will. So, that's the only kind of resources out there. So I went to the best thing at that time, which was the mystery method, right? At that point in time, it definitely was, especially for that because there was no one else there. Nothing else was there, really. So I dived into that, and obviously I learned a good amount of stuff from, basic social mechanics, the ideas of approaching, the ideas of using material. I think there's a lot of great things in the beginning. Obviously, when it comes to just like connecting with people and talking to people and getting their attention. So, that's basically how I started off, doing the mystery method type of stuff. Other people as well, but just like I kind of started off like learning that type of stuff in the beginning. And, again, in street game, it just didn't really correlate the same way. You know what I mean? Because if someone's walking on the street, it's not the same as if they're in the social environment and having fun and just relaxing or whatever, or with their friends, a different kind of context. So, I didn't really get that much results from doing that because it was in a different context. So, then basically I kind of started doing what you call the second generation pickup is all about. And a lot of people are still doing this as well, which is basically the idea of, forget being social all the time. Just focus on finding, just like be aggressive and just physically escalate blindly on every girl you talk to that's kind of giving you a conversation. And filter for the yes girls, or the DTF girls, which is girls that are either into you right off the bat or down to fuck off the bat, and just play a numbers game with those type of girls. Even all yes girls you're not going to sleep with, but especially if you're escalating. But still, why not do it, right?
It's a healthy phase for a guy to go through. You know what I mean? Push the limits, escalate, learn to be sexual, get some notches on your belt. But it's definitely a phase.
Yeah. Well, also too, what ended up happening was that there's a few things that I had an issue with this phase. Well, first of all, the number one issue with like the screening game is it doesn't work for every person because people have different issues. Different people fit different archetypes based on the woman that they're approaching. So, I'm gonna be realistic. I'm a black minority. So even a girl would sleep, even if it's like another girl of a different race would sleep with a black guy in the right context. Like if it's a friend of a friend and she feels completely comfortable on the street, it's just more of a numbers game, more of a grind for me just to like just do the yes girl game. And also, even if the girl goes yes in the moment, if I didn't have the logistics to take it home that day, she would still flake me later. Because yes girl just means yes in the moment. So you should try to take her home as soon as possible and have sex with her. DTF girl, same thing, right? I've had DTF girls where I couldn't get to sleep with, I didn't know where to go. I wasn't creative enough that time, and I just didn't see them again. So I still didn't solve a few of the problems for me, which is A, the flake issue, and B, also another thing too I noticed that most of the time in day games specifically, most of the yes girls or DTF girls wouldn't be the girls I really wanted.
The top tier, yeah, we say.
Exactly. Or any girl that's above my tier, right? Whatever my tier was.
Yeah.
I'll break down to you like how I measure that as well. Like how do you measure, how's a guy measure his own attractive value? It's a very interesting concept. I think it's pretty scientific. You can tell me whether you agree or not, because this is just a conversation.
Yeah.
But that's basically what I've noticed. So then basically it's hard to tell what people are doing the filtering now. It seems like a lot of guys are still doing that. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It just, I still seem very limited. And, for me, it just wasn't enough. And also it was very hard for me to keep going on from that. Go ahead.
Just historically, what kind of years were you doing this, mass approaching, and when did you start the filming?
Okay, that's a good question. So, when I was doing mass approaching, I wasn't really filming yet. It's maybe one or two small little things, like a cell phone with my girl in my room, but that wasn't really like an infill pickup video.
No.
So I started filming in 2012, right? Early, like January 2012, boom, right? That's when I started.
Yeah.
And, before that point, I've discovered what you call the third generation of pickup, which I was going into, which was, what I call third generation of pickup, which only makes sense, which is like instead of selling sex to women, which is like screening for Yes Go game, trying to create some form of romance, which is like, basically, selling women romance. I don't know if people know about my stuff. I'll just break it down here. I think the ultimate thing you can proposition or market or communicate or communicate to a woman is romance. It's the one thing that, that every woman intuitively wants who's biologically straight. And I've noticed it's extremely powerful because, again, women put on makeup. Everything women do is for romance, and also even the media supports romance as well, equally. With all these romance novels, the love songs. So all these things collectively just make romance the killer, the awesome, the best kind of like marketing tool, or I always just call it selling romance, to women.
The disclaimer, obviously, for all of our listeners is when maybe a new guy listening to this will think romance. Okay, Disney romance, flowers, poems. Oh, I knew I was right. And that's not at all what you're talking about, is it? I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of this bubble, this adventure, this movie excitement, this range of emotions. Yeah. That quote, men give romance for sex and women give sex for romance. It's understanding what women are in this game for, providing and protection and a long-term deal,
Of course. For lots of biological reasons that we can go into. And I'm glad that you got that question, because I probably wouldn't have thought about asking that. It shows to show how much good of a teacher you probably were back in the day.
I can imagine lots of guys now thinking, it is okay to be like the guy in the romantic comedy.
No. So I want to clarify that quickly. Because you're right. We talk about like basically like real life romance, and it's not the same way it's depicted. It's almost like fighting, like in the martial arts. Before the UFC in 1993, UFC basically means Ultimate Fighting Championships.
Yeah.
Before that, no one had an idea which style would have been the best style in real life use. They had Kung Fu, they had Taekwondo, they had Karate, they had boxing. No one really knew what would be the dominant styles because, Hollywood would market Kung Fu as such, right?
Of course.
So people would assume that like to be a good fighter you have to do Kung Fu, but in reality it was a very ugly kind of sport, which was called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a wrestling, grappling on the ground type of thing for one-on-one fighting. So, it's the same thing in reality when it comes to romance. Like the actual romance thing it's not just one simple thing of like, okay, give her a flower and be all sappy and be a pushover and beg for her with flowers in the rain when she doesn't talk to you anymore. It's nothing like that. At all.
I'm going to have to stop doing that.
Yeah. So all the listeners out there who are doing that, none of that. But instead what it really means is this. It means that in the initial pickup, what I try to do is I try to basically sell her this idea of me being a worthwhile potential boyfriend, right? Now, word potential boyfriend doesn't mean I'm telling her up front, I'm lying to her, tricking to her, saying, hey, I want to be in a serious relationship with you. That's what I'm really looking for in my life. So I'm not telling them that specifically. And even if I did, it would be kind of weird and socially miscalibrated. But I'm not telling them that at all. What I'm doing instead is I'm whatever I'm doing, all the actions and things I'm doing are aligning with someone that she would be in a relationship with. That's basically what I'm doing.
Yeah, and you're pushing those buttons.
Exactly.
Which I think in our equivalent, just our terminology, I would call that like the bubble.
Yes.
You and her in this bubble, and it's like a film.
It is beautiful. It's so beautiful.
You're famous for the quick juice or the little park adventure.
The cheap juice date. Okay. Yes.
Oh, that's good, man. I'm famous for like a really cheap bicycle ride through the parks of London on those little those bikes you pay for by the hour. Anything like that.
That's really adventurous.
Just to get that movie moment. And some of those girls that maybe wouldn't be yes girls, you can see in their eyes them thinking, oh, okay.
Of course, because now there's more incentive, right? So because again, you're selling them something that, going this bike ride or whatever, you're selling them something that like, it only happens in the romance novels, so it's in alignment with what they already marketed to, and plus subconscious and biologically, something that like, okay, well, this guy is more than just sex.
Yeah.
He can offer me more than just sex. Because again, women's sex is not that valuable at all. It's like, like women can fuck any guy of model caliber if they wanted to, just for sex, that is. And they know it. So the only thing that is valuable to them is romance, right? So even if a girl, again, like I have a lot of relationships where it hasn't been that serious. Like they weren't like, oh my God, like you're not telling my boyfriend. No, of course not. It's like a progressive thing. Like it takes me a few days before, or or weeks or whatever before the girl's like really like, okay, we should be boyfriend and girlfriend. So the idea
it can be for us and for them. It can be like this romance bubble that lasts 2 weeks. Like I was just in Tokyo. I had a thing with a girl. It was, you could say, quote unquote romantic, but she knew I was going home. But that's what you mean by these mini relationships, yeah.
And there's also potential in her mind, and maybe in yours too, that perhaps you can rejoin at some point.
Yeah, these are beautiful moments in life anyway. They go, once you've done enough notches and those we call them grot fucks, like just quick lays in toilets, or like you drag them home and they're okay, but it's
terrible. I don't like it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm a very comfortable guy. Like I love to be comfortable personally. So I like to really enjoy sex. And again, also one thing I wanted to also say about the romantic connection thing that the third generation of pickup, which is selling romance, is that it cures a lot. I would say basically it cures all problems with pickup, right? In terms of like the flake issue, right? Now let's say if a girl's a yes girl and she's sexually available and you can't take her home that day, she's still very likely to flake you again. Me again, because like there's nothing else there that was sold or communicated, really, right? Yeah. So you still get a higher flake rate even flipping for yes girls, because it's really only that good for girls in the moment with you on the spot, as opposed to seeding them for later. So what I tried to do instead was, hey, I can't always pull girls every time I'm out because it's like a lot of work, get the logistics right. I was like, well, what if I can solve this flaking problem? Me and everyone else at that time I knew in the community had this huge flaking problem. What if I could actually alleviate it, and basically after I started studying romance by something called the domino effect, which is a structure I teach, not the style, but the structure, that kind of made everything else easier, which made it easier for me to get a lot more consistent results of getting a lot more, like getting a solid phone number and then parting ways and having her see me again. And even weird thing that sex would happen much easier in those situations, not all the time, but easier in general than when I was sometimes like pushing for sex that day. And also too, it would be more enjoyable, not all the time, but it'd be more enjoyable on average the first time sex. And then it was much easier for me to keep seeing them after that as well, because they have incentive to see me again and again and again, based on what was originally kind of like established beforehand, which I call the romantic connection between both parties.
There's an efficiency to it as well, huh?
Oh, huge efficiency.
I remember this was, I think it was a blog post you wrote. This was years ago, and I passed it around to a few people because you weren't knocking cold approach. You said you have to go through this phase of learning, like it's pretty brutal, street approach, bounce back, same day lays, kiss closes, escalating hard. But after that, a pickup artist who's also, getting older himself, he realizes that whilst that's fun, the inefficiency of it means that then, as you said, there's another level where you're gathering maybe girls, you're meeting maybe girls as friends, you're establishing a social circle, not because it's like one of these cheap plots because you can't do cold approach. I know guys out there who do social circle because they're just scared.
It's better.
Scared of the approach. But
yes. But it's still better.
If you can combine them both,
you know
what
beautiful.
I mean?
It's so much easier when you combine them both with the cultures that you've accumulated.
We were talking about, your Miami lifestyle and why you did your New York years, but now you're focusing on lifestyle, huh?
Well, okay, so yes, so I want to break it down. So after like doing the whole romantic connection stuff, now keep in mind, I am a dating coach and a quote unquote innovator, right, of game to some degree, right? So I'm always innovating new things. Like, for example, I'm working on something called the super date, right? Which is even though I don't have to do it, like, fuck it, why not? I can't help it, right? So, like, even though all the, like most of the girls I've met in my life right now that I have were from day game pickup, right?
Yep.
That I've shown the girls that got tattoos and stuff like that. But keep in mind, that's my job as well. I have incentive. I make money from doing this as well. So it's not needed for most people to even reach do all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
it's not needed at all.
It's the world's bizarrest job.
Exactly, right? To go to that extreme. So in reality, when I wrote that post, it was called, I think I remember it's called something about like, the truth about stranger approach. And basically I was trying to say that stranger approaching is not designed for true social fulfillment. And because this is still a new field, like how would we know that? We didn't know any better. We just had to dive in and see what happens. But when you look around at, people with quality women, there's a few things. Obviously, yes. In most cases, almost all cases, I've kind of asked people that had to know each other. When I saw a particularly very beautiful woman, most time it was through some kind of natural social circle setup or online dating in which she already knew that she wanted to look for a guy. So therefore, the social context was much better than the stranger approach when you approach a random person who has no intention of being picked up at that moment. So there's something to be said about that from a scientific perspective. Like, the context that you approach actually dictates momentum a lot more than your techniques, based on what I've noticed. So when I look at all this stuff, I'm like, well, if a lot of cool, normal guys who bang these beautiful, gorgeous women, right? And it doesn't mean that they're banging 10,000 beautiful women all the time. It just means that they have access sometimes to some beautiful women.
Yep.
Do you think they can do stranger approach? No. But it's like if these so-called natural guys meet girls in natural ways, which is generally not stranger approach most of the times, or especially dating street game pickup, then it's like, why are we who are quote unquote less natural, right, going the hardest way to possibly meet women and stress ourselves out about it and being so hard on ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you actually just look around and pay attention to what's really happening, it's like, this shit is like the Olympics for the most part. Now, it has its pros. It makes you a lot more skilled. It definitely helps your social awareness. It helps you in a lot of different ways. But a lot of guys, including myself, would get so hard on myself when I wasn't as consistent yet. I would beat myself up. I felt there was something wrong with me inherently. I would see guys with beautiful women on the street and not recognize or remember that, hey, like he met her in a totally different context, in a totally different, situation.
In my new material, I call it respecting the hustle. Yeah, because I'm sure you were the same as me. We used to be day game purists, and you look at a guy who's doing social circle or even night game, and I used to say, he's not brave enough for the streets. That's that's not the hustle. But now, as I zoom out and I get older, I say, okay, fuck yeah. If you're a DJ, God bless you. If you're a male model, God bless you. If you've got a massive Vegas social circle, God bless you. It's the hustle, man. And it's all work,
Of course. Because the great thing about these guys with soul circles, though, like one disclaimer versus making your own soul circle, I've experimented all kind of nonsense, right? Yeah. Is that if it's out of like an organic kind of thing that you love to do, then that's when it's the easiest to do because you're not constantly doing it for women alone. So let's say if I was to build a soul circle only for the pursuit of women, it's a lot more exhausting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, like my only goal is to get women, so I'm gonna be a lot more impatient. Whereas another guy would meet a girlfriend maybe a year later after he kind of established like a legit girlfriend. He probably banged a few, but a legit hot girlfriend maybe like a year later, but he still enjoyed his soul circle so much that it didn't really matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like, some guys who try to social circles now, who like PUAs, pickup artists, they kind of get too antsy because they're not really focusing on they're not finding something they love to do and stuff like that. So I think that's been a kind of caveat with like, when we say social circle, we mean like a natural setup of like DJs, as you said before, because they love music, not doing it only for the women.
Yeah.
Anytime you do something only for the women, it's going to be more jarring. Because, women are very kind of unreliable creatures. Yeah.
Let's. Oh yeah.
In a nice way. I mean, in a nice way.
In a
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. It's
Like,
their nature.
like puppies, you gotta love them. Yeah.
Yes.
Coming back to your style of game in particular. If I say to people your name, Justin Wayne, especially in Britain and Europe, you're known well for two things, I would say. One is compliance momentum, right? Using physical game. A lot of guys know you for baby steps because they're watching these extreme, whatever, 1 hour bounce backs, 1 day bounce backs. Compliance momentum. So if you can talk about that. And secondly, if you can talk about not being direct, not being indirect, but having a kind of a switch between the two. Guys are fascinated by what that is.
Okay. So sorry, I'm a little bit ADD. I was a bad student. So
no.
Mr. Torero, if you could please start with the first question again. But exactly. Okay.
I'll give you a sticker after. That's very good. Compliance momentum, little physical things, so you know where you are, and you're you're just seeing by escalating where you are on the spectrum.
All right, cool. Yes. So, boom. Before, I'm going to preface this by saying this. Back in the day, we both kind of came up in a very verbal-esque pickup community, right?
Yep.
And one day I kind of realized, like, believe it or not, my verbals were actually better. I mean, they're probably better now than they're on videos, right? Like, I'm probably a better speaker in general than in the pickup videos. But even still, like, my verbals were better in my pickups when I was sucking with women versus now. I'm like rambling like a little child, but it doesn't matter because I've learned at one point that, hey, like, in terms of like, the laws of like communication, like touch is a lot more, it communicates to the brain a lot stronger than, verbals, because verbals are left open for interpretation, all kind of other stuff. It's just easier for someone to fight that. So for instance, if I tell you something's hot, right, you can imagine it, but you don't really feel it, so it doesn't impact you that much. But if I say, hey, Tom, touch this, and you touch it, ow, damn, it's hot, ouch, then you really felt it. You know for sure. You feel it on a very visceral level. It's the same thing in anything else. Even from a biological perspective, we learned how to touch and stuff like that, and in order to communicate with each other before we were able to verbally communicate effectively.
Hardwired,
So that is even deeper, in terms of like development, the touching. So touching is like, in my opinion, like one of the earliest form of communication, way before verbal and all that other stuff. So one day I kind of just noticed that, like I wasn't getting anywhere. So like, fuck it, let me just be like a little bit more touchy and forget all the verbal shit. Cause I kind of got burned out of like seeing all these storytelling and this long conversation and these long ass fucking dates. And a lot of them was still flaking tremendously. Might I add. It was, and I was tempted to go back to the Paul Jenkins method. Let me just like get fucking numbers and like 1 minute and call it a day. Cause like I couldn't figure out. Anytime I did longer game, I failed. So that's a big risk thing right there. Like taking longer game, what I mean? Like you don't know where to go. You don't know where you're going. It's fucked up because you actually waste a lot of time. It's just as flaky as getting a fast phone number. I don't know if you noticed that. Like if you had no direction in your pickup and you talk to a girl for like a fucking 2 hours, and they still get a flake. I'm like, what?
I recently tweeted like the longer you talk to a girl, the less chance you have of fucking her.
It's a weird thing. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
So that's why like instead of talking to her, I'm like, well, I'll just escalate on her because the more I escalate, the more she takes it, the more likely I'm to fuck her, right? So it's like
it lets you know exactly where you are.
That too, obviously. Yeah.
Because talking, she can lie her ass off. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Also, there's been a time where I did some tests where a girl would say, "Oh my god, like you're just so cute," right? Or some shit like that. Like when I'm talking to her, I'm like, "Oh, come here." And I try to hug her or something, and she's like feeling very uncomfortable with it. Yeah. So she wasn't truly attracted to me. She just thought she would have been, maybe because she wanted to believe she was attracted to me or whatever.
Yeah.
But she just wasn't.
Or in reverse, when she says, "I have a boyfriend and I'm not going to have sex with you," but
yes, I love when I hear that.
She accepts the handhold. She accepts the hug.
Exactly. So that's why at one point I was like, you know what? It's like what the old guy said. I think Rob Sheffy said once in the show. It doesn't matter what they say they want, what they think they want, what they respond to, and that's a scientific kind of response to what's happening here. And that's all I cared about. What did they respond to the most? So when I first started doing that, obviously I didn't really solve the flaking problem yet as much, but I was getting laid more, more often. Not like a lot, like on this level at all, but it was still like it was still more, definitely. Like I still felt better, and it felt more validating too, like getting close to the sex than just staying on that plateau of a conversation.
Do you, just on a technical level, how quickly if you're walking off on an instant date with them, are you holding their hand?
Okay, so now I'm gonna go technical. I was going a lot more like rudimentary just now. So from a technical perspective, I believe in stuff like Bruce Lee or even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is the idea of you go with the flow. You see what's presented to you and you strike, and then you try to then dictate the pace after that. So whether it comes to opening or whatever, I'm always kind of like seeing what they do now and then move forward from that. Again, I'm not like, it's very natural at this point. I'm not like having like, like a Venn diagram or anything like that when I'm doing this. But, it's just like fighting. It's like fighting. It's like, come on, it's the same thing. If someone's fighting, like obviously if someone punches, you can duck the next way so that way you don't get hit, right? I mean, it's mechanics. It happens. It's a mating dance. It's a flow. It's like the mating dance sometimes is like the woman battling with you. Like, no, I'm not interested. No, so you don't have to talk to me. No, right? So it's a fucking battle, like it's a mating dance.
It's backwards and forwards, huh?
Exactly, right? And the fact, and your demonstration of social dominance, which does involve a lot of touching as well, will then, can try and make it more triumphant, and that generates attraction, generates a lot of other things, momentum, and also ultimately it can help you generate romance as well. So, that's basically the way I go about it. So yes, I do have a very structured way of escalating in general. Now it feels more natural now because I've done it so much times. But at one point I've had I teach people like different steps that they can take.
It's the frustration for the beginner, or you could say the intermediate, where you have this bag of tricks that definitely work, but you have to throw them away. There's that stage of pickup where you have to say, fuck it, I'm gonna, I call it being in the flow. I guess you call it the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where you forget what you've learned. And that,
oh yes,
that's totally different from an instructor saying, be yourself. Because you can only do this once you've learned all those little moves and tricks and lines and little, Kino routines, old school shit.
Yep. And you know what's funny? I actually heard a quote like that today. I'm going to try to recall it. It's not my original quote. But, you can master, it's a quote about like mastering music, whatever. You can master the saxophone and you can master the music.
Yep.
But after that, you throw it away and fucking play. Basically, the ideology was like, you learn all this stuff, but at the same time, you have to figure it out on your own. Because here's the thing. So here's the problem with this escalating question. Again, I get very technical. I'm afraid to go so fucking deep and advanced for the audience. I know you would be able to keep up, definitely. You would know what's going on, but the audience. So there's something called style versus structure that I talk about, right? And, obviously I teach more structures, generally speaking. But the problem with styles is that a true style, like my style, whatever it's quirky humor or, how fast I decide to escalate, is not necessarily what another person should do.
Yep.
Because everyone has a unique set of advantages and disadvantages based on their archetype, the type of girls they're approaching, the atmosphere, all the stuff that, you have to measure out, you have to balance out that with your style. So for instance, if you are a very short guy and you have a stereotype to be very timid as well, let's say you're an Asian guy, whatever, then, you're better off really like maybe working on deepening your voice and working on vocal projection more and coming off more tough, because you have to make up for that deficit of both the stereotype and also just the natural kind of biological kind of perception of, well, he's a smaller guy.
Yeah, it's coming back to that playing to your strengths,
Exactly. And that can dictate the speed of what your escalation will generally be.
Exactly. And I say to guys, even though girls are hardwired the same, the song that they sing that you play the chords to underneath, that's different on whether, I'm meeting a girl in Tokyo, in Moscow, in New York. Mm-hmm. Miami girls are different to New York girls. And I'm not saying that the dance is different, but I'm saying, like you say, the tempo is different.
Yes, it's the social context as well. So let's say, so that's what I'm saying. So that's why at the end of the day, it's hard to just like do a copy and paste method.
Yep.
In terms of your style. So, no matter what, if you're going to be on any kind of quote unquote advanced level, you have to, basically take what comes, go with the flow, and be adaptive. It's something that you can't avoid, even though the idea of having, carbon copy, cookie cutter template sounds amazing. And again, a template will still render you better results than without any at all.
Yeah, I think for a beginner, it's almost useful to pretend that there is just this one thing, because then the beginner just sticks at this little machine until he's intermediate,
Exactly. And the thing about intermediate that's intermediate. I think intermediate could be one of the most frustrating parts of the game. It was for me. And one of the reasons why is that, okay, so when I reached the flaking sticking point, again, I know people get flake all the time. It's not a big deal. But to me, it's a fucking big deal. Because I really value my time, right? And after a while, man, I was just like, listen, I'm aware, I'm educated. I know the return on investment principles and all this other stuff. I'm like, yo, dude, is it flaking worth it? Even if you finally get the close, if it still doesn't go anywhere beyond that, and you have to go back out hunting for days, it's like, come on. Yep. It really burnt me out. So I used to quit game. I quit game a few times actually between us. I really did, because, I just didn't really like, the grind. Yeah. I'll be honest, all the time.
It's the burnout. I think all good PUAs I know have burnout and hibernation and.
Yeah, you have to.
Just, especially cold approach, street approach. I don't think guys realize how brutal it is in cities like London and New York,
Yeah, I mean, again, I've gamed different places as well. And if you're in a very busy city with people who have busy lifestyles, people who are worrying about money all the time and have to hustle for their jobs, what happens if you take a look at a particular, attractive girl's life, right? In London or New York City, any really big cosmopolitan city.
Sure.
First of all, any person in that city, first of all, the standard of living is much higher, but rent in those areas are very expensive. So that's one worry. Second worry is money, because I need to work. Also, just getting from back to forth from work, whatever, that's exhausting as well. So, they only have time for a few friends here and there. And they don't have time for that much else either. So even if they meet a cool guy in the street who they don't know, and there's nothing really else out there, at that time, it's just a lot more energy for them to see you again as well, So it's not like they're bored, have nothing to do. I'm going to meet you. A lot of times they always have something they could be doing.
Yeah.
Which is why in New York and London, even though it's a good place to get some decent practice in the beginning, it still is an illusion as to the idea of, well, the more girls there, the more they can get laid, or the more. It's not necessarily always true, or the more likely you find a hot girlfriend. That's not true at all.
Sure, and
and it's very competitive over there too, because you're competing with guys who one girl I have right now in the girlfriend series. She goes by the name of Lindsay, right? She has her own first name. I don't give out the personal first name all the time, right? Her name, we call her Lindsay. She's dated a billionaire before me, literally.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, it's just, they have a random option. So maybe if I met her a little bit earlier and she's with him with a lavish lifestyle at that point, it would be a lot more harder for me to probably penetrate to do that. You know what I mean? Because it's just so much competition in these type of big cities as well. I know New York for sure. I'm sure London as well. But New York has in terms of the social status scene of the hot girls always want to go to the top guys of the status bullshit.
Oh yeah. It certainly is fantastic for learning. The first couple of years of game, I recommend any guy to go to New York or London for day game, because it's, they're the meccas. But then, and I suppose this finishes up with where you are right now, to avoid this burnout, to avoid this just stuck in this cold approach eternity. You've moved to Miami. You've built a different kind of a life. Obviously, you're successful with your business. I mean, where are you now? What are you looking forward to? What's the vibe?
Okay. Well, I think I'm just going to retire and be a chode. Yeah. I'll play.
I knew it. That's what I tell everyone.
So basically, just to clarify a few things, I live both New York and Miami. And, I go to LA sometimes too. So I'm in the love triangle of sorts. Vegas is a bit too crazy for me. I just don't feel like getting any more STDs that I've had so much of. So, I'm pretty much.
Your mom will be happy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the amount of time I have to go to the clinic and stuff. I'm just keeping it real. So I'm fine now, supposedly. But the point is that, I kind of just decided to slow down for a lot of reasons. The truth is this. When I first started filming in 2012, a lot of people don't know this, but I was already kind of like, I already stopped gaming a lot. Like I wasn't, I actually, last time I really pushed myself a lot was 2010 and maybe 2011 a little bit. But 2010 was like the ending of like, the massive approaches, closing crazy late count in a year and all that nonsense. So by 2012, even though it looked like I was like this gamer with enthusiasm and stuff like that, I was already burnt the fuck out, dude. But just that I had nothing documented. So I'm like, fuck, here I go, right? So I did all this work and it was never documented, right? Yep. So shit. So that's basically, I stayed in the game a little extra longer just for like, just to document the methods and show the people how it can work in real life in my style and my structure. And, that's what I think the popular video at that time was, the mall video.
Yeah, it's your viral video, I guess. Yeah.
We have more viral videos after that too, with girl asked for sex, but YouTube took that down. That was too raunchy. And there's a few other videos as well, but the mall video was only the reason why I think the mall video was the best video that we've shown was only because it showed the idea of consistency within a short period of time. Yep. You know what I mean? And we still showed follow-up dates for the girls as well and going to the home. Obviously I couldn't show the sex because that's just, you can't do that too much on YouTube and stuff. But besides that, it was like a really kind of like showed the type of stuff that I was able to perform with the skills and the teachings that I've accumulated over the years. Because I want to show people that game can be consistent. Doesn't mean it has to be every time. But I want to show people that it can be. So even though people might argue, say, well, you met with 3 girls and sure you saw them again or whatever, but maybe you approach 1,000 girls, just to do that. Yeah. And obviously, I think you're smart enough to know that in a mall, within 2 hours set, it's like even through the mall, like, you can't push that much people in the mall without getting kicked out, Yeah. But that's basically like, at that time, so all those times when I was doing all that videos, all those videos and stuff like that, I kind of already slowed it down at that time. So I didn't just slow down now. I already started keeping girls in my life before that. It's just that, based on what I showed to the public, I didn't really want, I still didn't want to tell people, oh, I'm chilling out now, because then people get the wrong idea because they're not going to understand how hard I had to put in the work.
Yeah, it's the side of YouTube and in fields that, I mean, only we know that guys assume you're like that forever, that you're always on.
Definitely not. Like definitely not at all, man. Like, again, like if I have to do it for a demonstration purpose, of course I will. I'm very competitive naturally, I'm not gonna lie. So if like I would actually go into competition for fun, not for like machoism, but just for like kind of scientific inquiry and just fun. I love competitions. I love video game competitions. I love
demonstrate technique.
Just for fun too. Yeah, it's just like fun. It's just stupid. Like I always loved playing sports too. I always loved playing video games. Like I'm very competitive in Mortal Kombat. Like even more than pickup shit, of course. Like I love it. Like it's just a fun thing. But again, that's just me. So I like doing that type of stuff anyways. But now my personal life, basically, it was just basically, all I really wanted is a few girls that are very attracted to and keep them around rotations and sometimes bang a new chick here and there when I feel like it. Because how much time, even, let's say you have like 5 girls, right? That's a lot, right?
That's 3 so even kind of, even on 3, it gets like that's your week gone, really.
Exactly. And plus, if you're still seeing girls occasionally throughout that, it's even, so a lot of people have this kind of myth of like banging like thousands of girls and all this nonsense. Dude, it's like, like if you can get like 3-4 hot chicks and stuff like that and then see new girls here and there, you don't really need anything. Even that could be too busy for most people if you have a job. You see, remember, we don't have fucking normal jobs.
Just your body's drained. Like,
yeah, dude.
It's not natural per week, to...
Yeah, so that's the kind of lifestyle I've had for a while, right? And, obviously I figured out how to manage that over time. But like, it's still a better lifestyle to have than chasing girls on the pavement every fucking week and doing the same thing over and over and over again. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if you met a beautiful woman that you're attracted to, especially, what's the point about only banging her once for the most part and then looking for another girl over and over again? And the next girl might not be as hot either. So it's like, what I mean? I just never understood why people like are chasing, the infinity sign. Yeah. So you're running around in circles.
It's a healthy point to a lot of guys won't have heard that before, so it's nice you bring it up, mate, because in London, in the London scene, it's called the notch count hyena, you know, where you become so obsessed with the notch count or proving yourself. And it comes down to proving yourself to other guys, you know, it becomes this catch-22.
Yes.
So it's not exiting the game. You're just kind of feasting on the rewards of working hard, you know, and it's nice. Yeah. It's nice to hear that you're doing it, man, especially in Miami for a little bit of the year. Like I said, I hate you. I'm jealous. I'll be out there. I hope. I'm sure I'll meet you in Miami next year, man. I'll be out.
Of course, man. Just definitely let me know, man, and we'll just chill out and relax, man. And just so you know, like, a lot of guys assume like when we hang out, I'm gonna be like, yeah, that's a push girl. So,
good,
nah.
good. Yeah,
I'm more chill, dude. Like even like Alex from RC came, well, the ex-RC instructor, he came over and we just chilled, man. Like we're being normal. I wasn't like, hey, let's just pick up. Hey, let's just pick up.
He's had, like us, he's had big burnout from being on the road. I really like his, you know, when he says, look, I mean, the life of a pickup instructor online is very different from actually having to live it. You know that Alex knows that.
Especially work for RFC. I mean, I'm not knocking RFC at all.
No,
I mean,
but
they've made videos themselves saying, dude, to be an RFC instructor, bro, you're working like fucking 70-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks, dude. You have to edit videos, you have to do all kinds. I can't do that, dude. I could never be an RFC instructor. I mean, again, respect to whatever they do. Yeah, but dude, like Tyler would have to fire me because I'd be a lazy motherfucker. So I'd be like, yo, dude, this is a lot of work.
I thought I traveled a lot, but when you look at Alex's schedules or, you know, any of them, it's nuts. Absolutely nuts. But anyway, we will be chilling, man. We will be chilling, eating some steak in Miami.
Definitely, man.
Maybe a couple of jet skis. I'll race you on the jet ski, man.
I'm very competitive, man. We'll find out, man.
Get training, buddy. I'm coming at ya.
No problem, buddy. No problem, man.
Great Britain and the US of A. Anyway, cheers. That was marvelous. We could go on for days, but it's coming up to an hour, so I guess we'll do another one in the new year when live, and let's see what happens in the future. But it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, Justin.
No problem, Tom. It's been great.
And if guys want to check out your stuff, then if you're listening on iTunes, go to the description. If you're listening to this on YouTube, click underneath this video and you'll get all of Justin's sexy links. There you go. Cheers, Justin.
Ooh. Cheers.